Hi, EDCI 706FZ, the Fayetteville crew. It's just a couple of days post our meeting time in Fayetteville, and I love the Duck Donuts, love the time together, love the interaction and the conversations we were having. So thank you, and I appreciated our time together. So you have some more readings to do in Hall and Horde, implementing change this week. I have a story to tell you about a failed change implementation at Lufkin Road Middle School back in the early 2000s, and that I hope will illustrate Chapter 8 a little bit better about the mushrooms that sometimes grow up in schools. And you need to write. You have a bunch of writing to do for your PLCP, which is due at the end of week 9 next week, and then the FCEP soon after it. So I've closed 2 discussion boards this week, but I do want you to think about Hall and Horde, about mushrooms, about implementing a change at your school, whether it's iStation or social emotional learning. There is something being implemented at your school, I'm sure. Maybe you have a direct hand, Danya, Chris, in implementing that change. Maybe you're a change agent, or maybe you're helping to facilitate that change in your PLC or at your grade level. But how's it going? What process is being used to implement that change? What interventions are you or the principal or someone making to try to improve the chances that that implementation is successful? And what mushrooms might be growing up in response to that change or not? And again, I'm going to share a story with you through my lens and hope that it illustrates your experience. But I do want you to think about a change at your school. And if you can cite Hall and Horde in your evidence work to talk about implementing new changes in PLCs or implementing part of your action plan for your FCEP, then cite Hall and Horde. There's supposed to be research-based literature here, and you are implementing changes in many cases. So comment on that. I want to tell you a story about Lufkin Road Middle School in the early 2000s. I was named there in 1999, so I think it was 2001. I'm not sure, but this is true. This really happened. We and the whole district was concerned about math scores back in the early 2000s, and a new program was implemented by the district called Trailblazers Math. I remember it well. It was a very student-centered approach. Prior to Common Core, the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, NTMS, there were National Teacher of Math Standards, and they were saying that kids need to be more involved in problem solving and collaborating and working together to find answers and articulate the answers to their math problems, not just memorizing algorithms, not just memorizing math facts. So the whole thrust, we got new textbooks, we got training for teachers. These were interventions meant to make this implementation of a change to a new math curriculum successful. But it was called Trailblazers Math. It was a new series we were given. A bunch of teachers went off to training, and we were told, this is the way we're now going to teach math in middle school. Okay, again, it was very hands-on, it was very student-centered, and it looked good to me. I got training on it as a principal. I came back to my school and I did some support and training with the math teachers. The math teachers heard it from someone who went to the central office and came back as a coach to help the math, to implement this new math curriculum. So the implementation was a change to a new math textbook series and new math curriculum, a new way of teaching. It didn't change the curriculum, it was a new instructional method. Okay. Well, I introduced it at the beginning of the school year with lots of fanfare. We provided support for teachers again through this coach. I was checking in on teachers and trying to talk about it. It was hard in the beginning for many students and teachers, but I was trying to be supportive of the staff and was adding positive interventions just in the way of stopping in and trying to support and encourage folks. That was September of, say, 2001 or two, somewhere in there. So we kicked it off at the beginning of our year-round school year, and things were chugging along nicely for a couple of months. I was, I got the News and Observer, our local newspaper at the time, every day. I picked up the paper and opened it up and saw one of my parents' names on a letter to the editor trashing Trailblazers math. She wrote a letter to the editor saying, "That's not the way I learn math. Why isn't there one right answer? How am I supposed to help my kid if I don't understand it?" I remember the letter today, 20 years later, just like it was yesterday. It really hit me out of the blue that a parent has such strong feelings about this math instructional methodology. She hadn't come to me, by the way. She hadn't gone to the teacher. 2 months into this change, she wrote a letter to the editor instead. Well, Wake County does respond to parents, and it was the first of a wave of parents, not just at Lufkin, but from around the district, who were rebelling against Trailblazers math. In Hall and Horde, they ask you as the leader to try to determine what is the theme. You can't really combat or try to plan other interventions to combat a poisonous mushroom growing in your school without kind of finding out what's the theme, what's the big problem, Here's what I finally, years later, decided was the theme of these anti-parents who hated Trailblazers math. I heard it from that one parent who I later had dialogue with, by the way. We invited her to come into school. The poisonous mushroom didn't die. It grew and grew and grew until there were a bunch of parents at Lufkin and a bunch of parents, middle school parents around the district, who hated Trailblazers math. The theme that was emerging was, as a parent, I'm not going to approve my child learning math in a way that I don't recognize or understand. It's not the way I learned math. And even deeper, when I talked to math teachers and tried to really understand what was driving these parents' concerns, what was causing the mushrooms, the poisonous, because you understand that the whole Trailblazers math was now infected with poisonous mushrooms, okay? The theme was, I fear what I don't understand. I fear what I don't understand. The parents didn't understand Trailblazers math. They wanted to go back to memorizing and using the algorithm. A plus B always equals C. In Trailblazers math, it was supposed to be open-ended. And, well, let's see if you can find another way to solve this problem. Nah, parents didn't want that at all. They killed, in the space of 1 year, Trailblazers math. After, I'm pretty sure it was a year, 1 year, the district had reversed itself, thrown out Trailblazers, and gone back to drill and kill, a bad instructional method, in my opinion, in order to appease parents who, with their poisonous mushrooms, very effectively killed Trailblazers math. So see if you can come up with an example like that. And if there's something going on with a change you're trying to implement with your PLC or FCEP, comment on it. Use Hall and Horde. Cite Hall and Horde, please. Do cite the action-based research. Oh, you can talk about PLCs again in Hall and Horde for Chapter 7. Chapter 7 was all about PLCs, and do please cite Hall and Horde when you're writing those PLCPAs. You do need to write those this week. You do not need to do, I left these up here so you can see that I'm closing these discussion boards. Kevin said it out loud, but I think he was speaking for some of the others of you. No discussion boards this week. Instead, please focus on writing your PLCPA, which will be due at the end of next week. Okay, thank you. Write to me, call, ask. I'll be in touch soon.